So we have two remaining stories to hear. And just again to remind you that while we were very clear with all the women, the conditions under which the interviews would be heard and edited, the content and what they chose to speak about is entirely their choice. So we're now going to hear story 5. And the circumstances described in this interview happened 10 years ago.
We were going for our first scan at 22 weeks. We were very excited to be pregnant, a very wanted little baby. It didn't take the midwife long at all to spot that there was something really not right. She said, "This is not good news. This baby can't survive for long outside the womb." But she had to go off and get the obstetrician to come and confirm and give us the official diagnosis. He was able to say to us that our little boy had anencephaly, that at any time from now on he could pass away. 80% of babies with anencephaly are born alive, and that therefore there's a high percentage chance that he would be delivered safely, but then it would be a certainty that he would die shortly after that. You can continue the pregnancy, you can go to England for a termination, and that would involve an injection into his heart through my stomach to stop his heart, then inducing labour, and I would have to deliver him dead for certain. How I felt at that moment was, he's safe in your womb, versus I could go somewhere and allow somebody to inject his heart with something that will end his life. It started to dawn on me, I have no choice about losing this child. He's going to die, but I have a choice about his life in between, and I have a choice about getting to know him. I have a choice about allowing him to live his life and giving him what I can while I have him. And I'm his mother. I have what it takes to mother this child. We had made the decision by the time we left. His life, which we thought was going to be stretched out before us, is now this size, but we can make the most of this. And we can give him everything now. Once we'd made our decision, he assured us that while you're with us here, we will treat and value you and your baby as two valuable patients to us. I think for a mother who's just found out her child is so vulnerable, to be assured that strength of, we're there for you and your baby. You are both valuable. I think that's what any mother would want to hear. Dealing with news like that is a process. It's such a blow and it takes time. I found myself tossing and turning that night, having nightmares, and then waking up and going, oh, the nightmare was real. Just that sense of, I can't get away from this, and just wanting to run. And then remembering, that's right, it's not going away. We are going to lose this little boy. But he's here. He's not gone away. In the end of the day, what do I want? I want to know him. I want to give him all the love I can give. And actually, as the acceptance sank in more and more, then embracing the new situation was able to happen. Over time, the joy of having him today and in this moment grew. Waking up in the morning to his kicks and his punches was like, oh, there you are, you're here. Able to talk to him every day. And actually, that was an extraordinary gift. They always allowed me an extra long listen to the heartbeat. And his heartbeat was always so strong. I felt so proud of him for this strong heart he had. It was also fear. I remember coming towards the labour. I found as I got closer, I got more just uncertain and anxious, and what was up ahead was just so unknown. It was 36 weeks. I went in having contractions. Actually, this was the first time I'd met this midwife, and she saw my chart and she goes, now, you do realise that this child is incompatible with life, don't you? I felt like she'd kicked me in the stomach, because this was something she was discovering for the first time. This is my son, and I've been living knowing this for weeks. His heart is beating and he's alive. How can you call that incompatible with life? The contractions started to kind of slow down again, and I was starting to get quite frustrated, and I was going, why am I so determined to get on with this? This is the beginning of the end of our journey. This is okay if this takes time. It was like I took him by the hand and I said, however long you take, that's okay with me. I just relaxed completely then, and I just felt so much more peaceful. We want to be there for our children for as long as they need us, but also be always letting them go as they grow up and move away from you. That's our job as parents. And actually this is no different, it's just really intense. When he was finally born and in our arms, he was so beautiful and yet so vulnerable, so perfect and so imperfect, both. But I remember just gazing upon him and feeling two things. One, just wanting everything for him, wanting him to be whole. But two, utterly loving him just as he was, and the completeness of being able to together, myself and my husband, tell him we loved him, kiss him, hold him. And when he died, he just slipped away so quietly. We had gone as far as we could go with him. I had been there for him. I had seen him, I had met him. I had been bowled over by the beauty of who he was, and now I could let him go. So there was just a piece about that, which I think for me has been just an anchor in grieving afterwards, because as you can imagine, the horrible pain does come. Like, there's nothing nice about grief. It's awful, and losing a child it's horrendous. I have a face and I have memories and I have memoirs, and we just take out his memories and we look at the photos, we talk about him. There's just an openness in our grief. When I look back now to that moment when we were given that news and the two options that faced me, I just feel, for me, I would always be wondering, what if I would have met him? What if he'd lived longer than I realised? What would he have been like? I feel very grateful that I have that freedom in my grief. During the pregnancy, learning to live in the moment, that's kind of a lasting impact he's had on me. He's taught me to be more merciful to myself, to learn to be generous to myself, and to have patience with myself. Even a person who maybe on the outside looks like they can't survive, they're, in the terms of that midwife, incompatible with life, somebody like that can bring such a treasure into a family. I've been finding myself feeling so upset of late when I see babies being quoted as headless monsters, and also then mothers like myself being misrepresented as forced to carry around dead babies. That babies like this are the reason we need abortion here. I just feel like the whole understanding of a life like that is being lost. And I feel so upset when I hear of parents who've had to travel to England to have a termination, and just the awful circumstances around that, and having their babies sent back to them in the post. That's just horrific, because all these babies are so wanted and so loved. And yet that is because of a culture where a life like that is not protected by law and is not valued by law. And that's why that happens in that country. And when I think of the time it took for the reality of the news I'd heard to sink in, and for me to be able to get my head around what had just happened, going back to that moment, you are so vulnerable. You need to be minded, you need to be cared for. I cannot imagine what it would have been like if abortion was available, where I didn't get a chance to think through that, and where the doctors who I trusted were saying to me, this is medical management of your pregnancy. We do a termination, don't look at it as an abortion. I might have lost my son within a week. I would hope that babies would continue to be valued, both by law and by us as a nation.
So I'd like to thank the woman for her story, and just to invite you in the next 2 to 3 minutes just to take some time to jot down what's left with you after listening to that story. It can be a word, serious words.